What's the hardest metaphorical pill you've had to swallow? You're not meant for some people like some people aren't meant for you. One day, when you are 14, 28, or 65, you will stumble upon someone who will start a fire in you that cannot die. However, the saddest, most awful truth you will ever come to find over is they are not always with whom we spend our lives. Bo Taplin. You're gonna make me cry cause in beginning, to think this already happened to me. Not sure if helping, but it can happen more than once, so I guess you can look forward to that. Ah yes, serial disappointment. Sometimes trying my best is not enough. It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not failure, that is life. Jane Luckpakid. Knowledge is power. You are St. Francis Bacon. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky. That actually has nothing to do with the previous quote. Good quote. Yes. Relevant? No. That's Reddit for you. You want to participate and earn points, but you have no clue how to actually do that. Just regurgitate something random. That sometimes you have to forgive people for being selfish. And that sometimes you yourself have to be selfish. That was really big for me. Learning that being selfish is okay. You don't always have to focus on everyone else. Sometimes you need to focus on yourself. Thanks for stating that. I really needed the last bit today. That it costs money to stay alive. It really do be like that sometimes. That just means you're staying alive longer than you should be. Stop spending money and you will slowly die a natural beautiful death. I think I'd try hunting squirrels and foraging for dandelions first. Squirrels are too gamey. Make a snare and catch yourself a rabbit. That's good eating. Have to pay rent, mortgage, property taxes until I die. It's hard to swallow. Also costs money to die, so there's that to look forward to. No matter how wrong someone is, or how painfully obvious a solution to one of their problems is to you, sometimes they have to figure it out on their own, and there's nothing you can do to change that. Having a kid taught me this. I can tell her the stove is hot, but it has to be experienced anyway. Same with, certain things are sharp. No matter how I explain it, or even try to show her, she'll end up testing it. No matter how I explain it, or even try to show her, she'll end up testing it. Show her how? Like getting her hand close to the heat, to show that it would hurt to touch it? I'm wondering what's the best way to go about teaching her that. You're not responsible for anyone's happiness. And no one is responsible for yours except yourself. Some people cause happiness wherever they go. Other people cause happiness whenever they go. This gave me a chuckle. I've somehow never heard that saying. Reddit, you're not responsible for anyone's happiness. Also Reddit, RA said be narcissists, I'm definitely responsible for my kids' happiness. This one's more about relationship advice than family. You are, as well as being responsible for teaching them how to be happy themselves. It's a huge cross to bear, but you can do it. Sometimes your friends don't consider themselves as close to you as you do to them. The hard pill: this doesn't make them a bad friend. It just means that everyone has their own social network and you can't always be at the center of everyone's. This is one that I know is true, but I have a hard time accepting. I have a few close friends that each have one other best friend. I feel like I'm the second best for all of them, but nobody's true best friend. Same, and I hate it. This just hit me deep, because I realized that I'm a second best friend to someone I consider my main best friend. I think for me, it has to do with being wanted, but I understand she has her own history with this other person and I can never replace that. I just have to be the best friend and person I can be. You are not nearly as exceptional or special as your parents may have led you to believe. One thing I learned pertaining to high school: if you are the valedictorian, the lead actor in the school play, the best musician in band, the best football player, or the best at anything in high school, you are simply one of about 30,000 bests in the US that year alone. I realized this when I was one of the best musicians in my high school and I checked out the college band while deciding which school to go to, and in each case, I was mediocre in comparison. Thankfully I had already decided to do computer science, but was considering leaving a career in music open. Honestly, I'm much happier with it as a hobby. The way I've heard this is, if you're one in a million, that means that in the US there are 300 plus people just like you. I've always heard, if you're one in a million there's 1,000 of you in China. You can never escape yourself. There was some similar quote about that from Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book, when Silas explains that people who commit suicide aren't usually happier in the afterlife, because it's like traveling, you take yourself wherever you go. It's a good thing there isn't an afterlife. And that's why so many of us drink and use drugs. It's nice to get away for a while. I don't understand how some people don't feel the need to alter their mind. Many do, but still strive to avoid drugs, alcohol for their own sake. Nothing wrong with drinking a beer with pals every now and then. It's just not for everyone. I hate what I went to college for. Stuffed that 4-year degree in a blender and found a new job. Couldn't be happier now, even with less money. Man, I would have bought that degree off you. Depends on the degree tbh. I'm selling an art history degree for $20. Any takers? How about you give me $20 and I'll take it off your hands for you. I'll buy it, but I can't pay you in cash. But think of how much you'll make from the exposure. I did the same thing and went from working in a depressing laboratory to running my own doggy daycare. I could not be happier. It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness, that is life. Captain Jane Luckpickard. Speaking of hard pills to swallow, Star Trek will never be real, especially in your lifetime. Well, not with that attitude. Takes entire sheet of acid. You can post something first, but someone else might post the same thing an hour later, even misquote it, and still get 5x the upvotes and gold. That is Reddit. Someday, everyone and everything will be dead. It's not just that you won't be alive anymore, you won't even be remembered. Regardless of what you or anyone else does, the end result is the same. A soft pill to swallow is an answer to what you just wrote. Even though everything will die at some point, that you have been here will always have happened. You as an individual, including every insignificant aspect of your daily life, is forever carved into the structure of existence, simply because nothing could ever make that you were not here. By simply being, you and I are part of the eternal. No afterlife required. I wish I had heard this at age 10, when I asked my dad what the meaning of life is. Instead, I got a chuckle and was told that you're too young to be thinking about things like that. Go back to bed. To be fair, that answer doesn't really give life meaning, just a kind permanence. Basically saying that the past is eternal and unchanging. It doesn't explain what the heck we are doing or why we are doing it, but it's still a nice thought. Sometimes the reason you aren't a doctor or lawyer or a well-paying profession is simply because you were too lazy, rather than not having the ability. Yep, laziness keeps you from achieving quite a bit, not to mention the rationalization that you weren't meant to do it, or it wasn't worth your time, etc. Sometimes the idea of those professions are better than the reality of them. This is definitely true for me. A series of seemingly harmless mistakes and shortcomings through my childhood and late education all added up in the end. I know people say it's never too late, but it was definitely a hard pill to swallow, and felt very unfair that decisions I made when I was less wise, too young, lazy, and naive, pulled opportunities away from me now. Some people like being unhappy. My husband is not happy unless he has something to complain about. It's who he is. My dad can one-up him. He needs 2 things to complain about, one at each end of the spectrum. He complains about something, you agree with him, and state the opposite, but then he says you are wrong, and complains about that, so now you're boxed in, and whichever way you go he can keep moving the goalposts. Every single subject. Some people like being unhappy. This reminds me, when I was working at a rehab hospital years ago, they were doing a group physical therapy session and this one lady kept complaining how cold it was. I grabbed her a blanket, it was 70°F inside, and she said no, I don't want a blanket, I would rather complain. The whole time there she wanted to complain, and didn't want any problems fixed. Just because I would never do something to or hurt someone intentionally doesn't mean they wouldn't do it back to me. Just because I would never hurt someone intentionally doesn't mean I haven't ever hurt someone. Expecting someone to be kind to you just because you're kind to them is like expecting a lion not to eat you because you don't eat lions. True, but we are not talking about lions, we are talking about people. But I totally understand what you're saying. Back when I was younger and naive, I just couldn't believe that some people were just genuinely not good people and didn't care if they hurt me or others. I always tried to look for the good in people, and I learned the hard way that not everyone had the same mindset as me. Not to say I don't still look for it, but I'm definitely much more cautious now and accepting of the fact that not everyone is good and not everyone is my friend. It really helped me to be able to heal and let go of some of the past hurts I knew I would never get true closure for. The only constant in my life is me. I can do all I want to keep another person in my life, but we ultimately do not decide whether they stick around or not. Agreeing with you and expanding a bit, I've understood early in my life that I will never stop a person from leaving my life. It's their decision and I have to respect that. Now if they ever want to be a part of my life again, well, that is my decision, and it will always be a no. That all good things come to an end at some point. Just got out of a rough spot because of that. Things are really starting to go good, and I really don't want it to end, but one day it will. Hopefully that day is a long ways away. King Solomon once said, for a magical ring that would make any man who was happy sad and man who was sad happy, he was given a good ring inscribed with this too shall pass. Each time you smile, it'll only last a while. Life may be scary, but it's only temporary. Sometimes love just ain't enough. Your primary aim is not to achieve some purpose. You are not just a tool. But hard constant work is the only way to justify my existence under the current economic framework. You will not take this from me, for it is all I have. Justify my existence, that implies that existence needs to be justified. What is just? It's subjective. So you either want to justify it to someone or to yourself. You don't need to do either. I agree that was sarcastic, but thank you for trying to help out anyway. You can't help anyone that isn't helping themselves. There's nothing you can do for them unless they help themselves too. Nothing. If that guy wanted to have CPR done on him, he should have put in some effort too. On a less joking note, I agree with your point. This carrot, I've been around enough mental illness and put in enough effort and years of time in to know it's pointless. If they don't see a problem or aren't willing to change, no amount of help matters. Oh, don't discount the assholes for the stood. They are the ones who tell you all their problems, beg for your help, you give them advice and they completely ignore it and do the opposite, then come back crying to you again about how their life is so hard. Like, oh, I heard this one before. I was raised in a home where tidiness and brushing your teeth wasn't taught to me. As a 21-year-old who wants to be married one day, I'm having to learn that. Gotta take care of those teeth, man. The other stuff is just bad habits to break that you can do. Good for you for recognizing that. Please also learn to wash, fold and organize laundry, basic money management and bill paying organization, and make everyday maintenance a habit, like dishes or just putting everything away to avoid clutter. Your future wife will thank you. Also, doesn't hurt to like cooking. I love cooking, and to quote the great David Byrd, I swear that laundry's such a process I don't wanna bear. I hate doing laundry, but again, that's something I'm learning to do. You do nothing on your own. Everything you achieve is a result of other people's actions helping you be able to be in the position you are today. You stand on the shoulders of giants in every way. This is your inheritance as a human, in the form of infrastructure, society, security, healthcare, technology, vaccination, peace. Everything that allows you to have a choice in the course of your life is the result of someone in the past constructing a better world. Take this hard to swallow pill and consider it when you decide what actions to take in your daily life. I found it beneficial to realize we are not standing on the shoulders of giants. We reach as high and far as we can on the shoulders of regular people, like me. And I will help others up to stand on me. I actually enjoy this idea more than find it hard to embrace. For me, it is the comfort in knowing we'll work and grow together at the end of the day. Very true, but not just people in the past, people in the present as well. Don't throw good money after bad. Don't fall for the sunk cost fallacy. Just because you've invested a lot of time, money, effort, emotion into something or someone, doesn't mean that you should continue investing in them hoping that things will change. Sometimes it's better to cut your losses and accept that, while you may have wasted time and energy on something, that it's better to stop hemorrhaging resources when it's clear that you aren't getting the outcome you want. It's still better to have wasted 2 years on something that didn't work out than wasting 10 years on it because you figure you've invested too much to quit. Whoa, I needed to hear this. I screenshotted it so I don't lose it. Can someone please pass this on to the Pentagon? Maybe get some of that sweet F-35 money funding veteran services, or replacing the worn out gear that gets issued out, instead of building shiny new toys that either don't work or just end up sitting there. The hardest metaphorical pill I've had to swallow was probably the one where it later turned out it was a metaphorical suppository. That not all parents love their children. Had to learn this the hard way, and I see more of it every day. It breaks my heart seeing how bad children are treated. That no matter what I do, she will never love me, or even like me. My mother is not a good person and there isn't anything I can do to change that.